to Haunting the Narrative.
50% of Haunting the Narrative.
The good ones. The good ones.
The European ones.
Now I feel really sorry for Meg and Lizzie because I actually adore them. Not that I don't adore you.
And they were really nice about us. Ah, yeah. I know what you mean. You said what you said.
Anyway, Máiréad is here with me tonight, in case you didn't notice from the voice.
And the sarcasm.
And we are here to chat about Scarlett and Browne. Yay!
Sorry, I got distracted by another notification. But yay, Scarlett and Browne! I've now muted everything. This is worse than being on a Teams call for work. Are you checking emails right now? No, I swear I'm not. Yeah, no, we're here to talk about Scarlett and Browne, and we're going to be more hyperactive than normal because it's 11:15 at night, and both of us have to work tomorrow. Well, at least I do. Natasha has to get kids to school and things. Yeah. Without further ado...
Yeah, I have to work tonight after we finish recording this.
Oh my god.
Yay! It's great being an adult.
I'm questioning your life choices so hard. Anyway, we're going to actually deviate from our usual Lockwood Co programming, and we're going to talk Scarlett and Browne.
Why are we talking about Scarlett and Browne? Because we really liked it, that's why. Look, we read Lockwood Co. We obviously like Lockwood Co. at least a tiny little bit.
I'm kind of ambivalent about it.
Yeah, I know. There are better things, aren't there? It's just, But anyway, since we kind of liked Lockwood Co., we thought, well, we'll give Scarlett and Browne a shot too. And also, we were just kind of lukewarm on Scarlett and Browne, so we decided to do at least one episode, maybe about 5 more. You know, episodes beget episode in this podcast.
They do. I've already had an idea for another one, even just talking through the outline for this episode. So, yeah, it's trouble.
So, my 800 episode master plan may still yet come to fruition.
Anyway.
But since that's not actually part of the plan, this episode is going to be a little bit ambitious, like our very first Lockwood Co episode, which was about Lucy. And we talked about everything to do with Lucy. And it just felt a little bit scatterbrained compared to our later episodes. But we're going back to that. We're going to do it deliberately this time around. There are spoilers everywhere in this. We have no choice, exactly. We have no choice. There are spoilers everywhere in this episode. We are assuming that you've read the books. We're not going to recap through all 3 books because they are quite jam-packed with...
It would take us a full hour.
Narrative themes. Yeah, it would take us more than an hour to go through it enough so that we can then talk about these characters. We're just going to talk about the characters. If you've read the books, great. If you haven't...
Spoilers!
Nah, I'm sure you'll have fun. We're going to start our sporadic Scarlett and Browne deep dive series of episodes because they're going to pop up here and there over the next couple of months. We're starting this series off with a talk about the characters. Why are we going to talk about the characters? Well, it's because this series, this story is beyond anything else. It's about characters.
It is really like personalist. It's it has a great cast. To be fair, the overall cast is really engaging. You know, you've got the central characters, Albert and Scarlett, the eponymous Scarlett and Browne, but you also have their friends, Etty and Joe, the kind of cantankerous old man and his mute granddaughter, and there's even a kind of like a Kip's Lockwood sort of combo character. It's like if you put Kip's patheticness in Lockwood's body, and you produce Mallory, who's the greatest character ever written. I will not be accepting criticism. No one touch my terrible son who has every disease. But there aren't any like animal sidekicks. Although, I mean, to be fair, have they ever had an animal sidekick? Like the Bartimaeus trilogy had like a non-human sidekick. The Lockwood Co had like a ghost sidekick. So there's no non-human sidekicks. I think Mallory actually doubles as the non-human sidekick, even though he's a human being technically.
I was gonna say maybe like Etty, because she's a child and anybody with children knows children are delightful, loving, wonderful creatures who are also kind of what the hell. But also possibly it could be, you know, like all the half psychic, you know, super powered up humans, but there's more of them than normal humans.
Yeah, I suppose there's a little bit of transhumanism in this series. I mean, it's just there's nuclear reactions and mutations, and it's all the lines are a bit blurred and fuzzy there. So anyway, but let's have a very brief talk about the story.
Okay, so the story of Scarlett and Browne, it is, I suppose it's kind of marketed as a Western, because here in the UK we are a bit obsessed with Westerns. And they're fun. I guess they don't really hit very close to home for us.
No, that's true.
But the story is not actually some grand epic that you might think it is. I mean, you think it's going to be a hero's journey in many ways, which I guess it kind of, it kind of is, except the conclusion of the story is not the conclusion of the hero's journey. They do start a rebellion, but this isn't the Hunger Games. The rebellion's not the point of the story. The heists, all the bank heists, the robbing, is not the point of the story. When you start reading the books, you kind of think this is a story about maybe Albert coming into his powers, Scarlett, coming into her morality, and then working together, and they're going to win over the evil that controls the world. And it does kind of happen. Like, some of that does happen explicitly, but it's like a side quest.
Yeah, it's not really, the focus isn't really on taking down the system. It's kind of like something they sort of do accidentally in the process of, like, trying to do more important things, like reunite Scarlett with her brother and stuff. But because ultimately what it's about two very damaged, very hurt people learning to trust and love and connect with people and to accept support. So yeah, that's the reason we liked it so much, I guess.
I love how you just delivered that, like, it's a beautiful story, honestly. I kind of do think that, like, we need some more stories like this. But then, when people actually set out to write stories like that, it normally comes off preachy. This isn't preachy at all. It is absolutely gorgeous.
Effective.
It's wonderful. But the fact that the story is about those two people, rather than all the heists and blah, 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 is why it's so important that we need to talk about the main pair themselves.
Yes, Scarlett and Browne.
Yes. Did they have a ship name?
I think people call them maroon because color theory, if you mix brown and scarlet, you get the color maroon, which is kind of a yicky color, but it's a cute ship name. It is.
It's a cute ship name, but it's also impossible to Google.
Yeah, if you look for Maroon Fix, you're gonna probably get RPF about Maroon 5, and no one wants that.
Oh my god, does anybody ever write RPF about Maroon 5?
I don't want to know. No one tell me. Please.
I'm sure they do, but...
Don't, no. We've gone too far down this tangent already. I'm pulling a Lizzie. Stop it.
I was just going to say, once upon a time, I heard a theory that Maroon 5 had sold their soul to the devil because they have 1 million number ones, but they're nobody's favourite band.
This is true. I mean, they're tuneful. I like some of their songs, but...
Anyway, they are not Albert Browne, who is who we're going to talk about first. Yes. I know the title says Scarlett and Browne, but we're going to go with Browne and Scarlett. And also, why is Scarlett her first name and Browne and Albert gets his last name in the title? It's the whole, like, Kamala versus Trump thing again. It really annoys me.
I think it's because it's the cute color thing. It would also be too much if they both had color first names or both had color second names. It's kind of a pleasing kind of symmetry, but not too symmetrical.
Yeah, I get it. I actually like that it's called Scarlett and Browne as well.
It's a very cute title.
It's very clever.
Also, no one calls Albert Browne in the books. So
and nobody ever at all calls him Browne. So it's...
He's such an Albert. If ever there was anyone who deserved the name Albert, it's a little bit like his name was used to Scrubs and he nearly deserved it. His name was Albert Browne and he fully deserved it. I love him to bits, but never was there more Albert Browne, little man.
My dad's name is Albert, actually. If I was a boy, I would have been called Albert III.
Thank God you were.
Albert is actually nothing like my dad, Albert. Albert is very, very, very sheltered. Or at least this is how Lizzie and Meg put it in the mini episode that they did a couple of weeks ago, which was supposed to encourage you to read Scarlett and Browne so that you would then be prepared.
Hope you've done your homework.
Exactly. Did you do the homework for this episode? Because if you didn't, you're missing out.
Did you complete the reading assignment? If not, fail. You can do some extra credit though. My fics are in the comments. If you leave a comment, that's your extra credit.
You don't write Scarlett and Browne fic.
I could.
No, Lizzie does actually. Lizzie does.
That's true. Review Lizzie's fic, and we'll let you make it up.
When they said that Albert is sheltered, what they actually meant was he had zero experience in the world, but not because he was, a protected little teenager, but because he grew up locked in basically a tortured house.
Mm-hmm.
From the time he could remember, he was living in a place called Stonemore. Stonemore it seems between it's kind of presented as a cross between a psychiatric facility and a prison. And the inmates are there, they're not allowed to talk to each other. They go from their rooms to, experiments, which is like torture, and then back to their rooms. And that's kind of his whole life. Sometimes he goes to the canteen, sometimes he goes to the day room, like a common room where they can hang out but not talk to each other. And that's his whole life up until the time that he breaks out. But it's not quite as clean as that. In book 3, they actually go back to Stonemore. And Scarlett's point of view, and she's describing iron posts with chains and whips, and it is nasty. Like, it's a full-on torture facility that he's raised in.
Guantanamo.
Maybe worse.
But without, the semblance of human rights compliance. I do agree that actually that Albert is kind of sheltered in a way. Like, he's sheltered from the this post cataclysm world, in that he's one of the few people whose early experiences are sufficiently horrible to make this world, like the ruined mutant world that the story takes place in, he finds that beautiful. Because his past experiences are so awful, he can actually appreciate the beauty. Like when he gets out of Stonemore, being free is like so amazing that he can see beauty in all sorts of like weird and wonderful things. Like, there's that scene in book 1 where they're riding down the river and they're attacked by these spear-toothed birds, and one nearly kills him, and he looks at this dead bird and he's fascinated by its beak. He's like, Scarlett, isn't that beautiful? He's just like, he sees beauty in the thing that just tried to kill him, which is maybe a little reflection of his relationship with Scarlett there. I don't know. He does have the capacity to see beauty in very dangerous, damaged things. So the thing is that torture kind of made him one of the few people in the world who could receive that world, awful as it is, as a gift. And that actually makes him a force for like positive change, because everyone we meet in these stories is like, they're either trying to keep the change out. So like the Dr. Callaways, the Faith Houses, the towns, they're all like clinging to this sort of old country English vibe, and resisting the changes that have come into the world. Or they're at the complete other extreme, like the Brothers of the Hand. Is that what the gang is called? I know that the word brothers in there in hand.
The Brothers of the Hand.
Yeah. The gang, the criminals, they've kind of totally given into barbarism. Like, they're outside the rule of law, they don't believe in it, and that's kind of the position that Scarlett herself is in when we meet her at the start of the book. So Scalbert there's a ship name. Albert is one of the few people we meet who actually wants to live in the world as it is. I think maybe Joe is the only other one that we meet who has this kind of radical acceptance of the world, and like, it's heavily implied, I think it's implied, that his granddaughter is in some way connected to the tainted, whether it's that all kind of psychics are in some way like the tainted, like it's just a degree of mutation, or whether it's I don't know, somehow he ended up with a tainted granddaughter. It's unclear, but he does accept her and love her anyway, despite her being, one of these deviants that wouldn't be acceptable in the towns. So anyway, we're not talking about him, we're talking about Albert. So Albert is actually capable of living in the world as it is. He's capable of accepting things, and that's what he gives to Scarlett, which I think is so important, and that's why she wants to keep him with her, among other reasons. Obviously, I think he also reminds her of her brother, But that's
when
it.
you talk about Etty actually being part of the Tainted and Albert accepting the world, this is something that sort of struck me from my very first reading of book one, is that Albert seems to belong to the new world.
Yeah.
You know? Whatever deviation he's got, however he came into his powers, his genetic makeup's a bit different, but he fully belongs to the new world. Scarlett kind of fights for her place in it, and she doesn't fight to control it or to keep it out as much as a lot of other people do. She kind of works with it, which is a lot like how she works with Albert as well. She works with him. She doesn't push him to do this or do that or whatever. She works with what she's got. But Albert just seems comfortable with it.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a completely unique attitude. But it does. I mean, I think it takes him a while to. He's not perfect. Like, there's definite things like that are not right in there.
Yeah, he's not, and he's not in any way, shape, or form like equipped to survive in it.
No.
When we first meet him. But he does, like, he'll look at the ruins, at the burnt out areas, at the dead zones, and he'll be fascinated by them. He'll find some kind of beauty in them. And he won't be as unsettled as, you know, like Scarlett or another character would be. And I always find that, like, he just seems like he's part of the landscape in a way that Scarlett isn't.
Yeah, she's kind of fighting against it. She's or kind of prowling through it, like, when we will talk about that when we get to her.
But despite, you know, Albert's calm with the landscape and the world that he's in, he's got some big time PTSD from the whole torture house upbringing thing. It kind of fades away a bit once Calloway dies.
Yeah.
You know, so a lot of it, I think, is tied specifically to her.
Yes.
Which makes sense because she was kind of the prime torturer, and it seems very much like she was kind of brainwashing, grooming, programming him in a way to sort of see her as, you know, both a source of fear and a source of validation, the only source of validation and acceptance.
Yeah.
So, you know, please her and your life will be better. Please her, that's the only thing that you can hope for, because that's the only positive feedback you're going to get is when you please her. And when she appears in book one, he just completely freezes up. He panics completely. And that's not the only way that he's really vulnerable in book one. When we meet him, he's got no muscle mass. He's got no stamina at all. Which obviously is because he's been in a prison his whole life. You know? And like Máiréad was saying, he has no understanding of how the world works. He's been sheltered from that aspect of it. But when we do meet him, he's, you know, he's having to climb out of buses. He's having to walk across. He treks across the forest and the fields with Scarlett. He jumps into a river. He's floating down the river. He can't swim. He can't do any of this. He can barely keep up with her. And it is because he's been, like, locked in a room his whole life. And I actually really like that he's written that way, because I think a lot of media will kind of say, oh yeah, this person's never left this room, and yet they know all of this stuff and they can keep up with the escape and all of that, whereas Albert's constantly lagging behind. So I think it's more, I don't know how realistic his mindset or anything is, but I think it's a very good semi-realistic depiction of, you know, how you know, how somebody in his kind of circumstances may you know, actually act. And I like that they put that in.
Yeah, it's both Albert and Scarlett are, like, really, really interesting in that they're allowed to be subversions of kind of maybe typical expectations. Albert is allowed to be completely weak, like completely weak and useless. He's not a macho hero at all. And Scarlett, we'll get to this a bit more as well, but she's allowed to be wild and rough and you know, she's the hard drinking, hard gambling, rootin' tootin' cowboy girl, you know? So it's very much a reversal of the expectations, and yet it feels completely natural as well. But yeah. I do think it's again, there's always this kind of tension in Stroud's writing between, I'm writing for middle graders and I'm writing about these really dark topics. So, like, the fact that Albert is, like, a long-term torture victim and is feeling the effects of this all throughout book one, it's a little bit played for laughs in that it's not directly, you have to think about it to realize how awful it is. He doesn't think to question his physical inability. He just admires Scarlett's capability, and she doesn't feel sympathy for his weakness either. She's just irritated by him. I mean, I think actually she does feel sympathy, but if anyone shows weakness around her, it inspires feelings of protectiveness, which inspires, well, it's not so much weakness as vulnerability, like kind of true vulnerability. But anything that kind of makes her feel protective, reminds her of this brother who she lost, it makes her really defensive and irritable. So I think a lot of her initial anger with Albert is to do with him reminding her of her brother, and that making her simultaneously drawn to him and like upset and angry with him. That's my theory.
Ooh. See, I just think Albert's really freaking annoying when they first meet. You know, exactly. Scarlett's like, we have to keep walking or we're going to get caught by a militia and like hung, drawn and quartered. And Albert's like, yes, but look, pretty rock. Yes, but my feet hurt. Oh, but I'm so hungry. Oh, but I'm just not fast enough. Oh, but and he's not apologetic about it at all.
No, it's true. And that's kind of, again, like maybe the self-centeredness you'd expect from someone who's never really been allowed to interact with other people. There is a little bit of the world revolves around me in the first book. But yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of almost there in its absence. Like if you look at Scarlett's internal monologue carefully when she first meets Albert, there's a lot to do with his helplessness and his youthfulness. Like she describes him as a boy and she emphasizes his being younger than her, which just really makes me feel that she's thinking of Thomas. And she makes this fairly uncharacteristic decision, or well, what seems to be in contradiction with her normal behavior, this decision to like let him come with her. And again, I do think that there's a little memory that she's resisting there. But anyway, we're now bleeding into the second half of the episode, which I'm not supposed to be doing. But it's 11:10 at night. I accept no responsibility for my actions after 10 p.m.
I don't think it's the time that's causing this, okay? You're obviously just a Scarlett fan.
I am. She's great. I love her.
I like them both, but I have to admit, like, the more I reread it, the more I tend towards Albert.
I mean, I like them both. I think what I really like is how they interact with each other, which is, it's a little bit like Locklyle in that it's really hard to talk about the one without talking about how, you know, they grow into each other.
Once you start talking about their growth, you really can't talk about them without the other because it's just so heavily intertwined there. But before all of that growth starts, you know, I love Albert especially because he's so... You know, he comes. What happens? Like Scarlett saves him from a bear, and he starts thinking that Scarlett died, and so he starts like basically delivering a soliloquy to her on the hillside, and then Scarlett says, "Hey, I'm not dead," but he thinks the bear's talking. He's going, "Sir Bear, please, Sir Bear," and
it's really funny. I don't know what it's almost Shakespearean, like, but he just. I mean, I suppose again he kind of talks like someone who's learned to speak out of like a book, which, you know, if your only interactions are with people who are like torturing you,
they're torturing and educating him, aren't they?
And brainwashing you, then that's probably explains why his speech is a little bit funny.
But he's got this big innocent vibe, and everything's wonder, everything's gratitude. That's one of the reasons why he's so annoying at first, because he's all like wide-eyed and empty head, no thoughts. That's the big impression you get.
Dandelion fluff.
Exactly. And then like even in his POV, because Scarlett and Browne, if you haven't read them, they switch POVs.
That's great.
Yeah, his POVs as well, like his early ones, it's all complete fluff essentially, and how it, you know, how this beautiful girl saved him. He never calls her beautiful, but you know, it's waxing lyrical, man.
Yeah.
But then there's just these throwaway lines, like he's just following her, whistling to himself, and he puts his hands in the pocket of his prison trousers and settles into Scarlett's mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, like wait, in his what trousers though?
And he did what to Scarlett's mind?
Yeah, like wait, ha 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 ha.
Yeah, and Scarlett like. as we're like slowly discovering him and being like, wait, there's something a bit off about this guy. What's going on? He's not what he seems on the surface. Scarlett is also going through this same process, which is quite fun. Like she goes through it at the same time as the reader. So, you know, there's the this militia. Oh, how do you say that word? Militia. Damn it, militia.
Yeah. There's militia tracking Scarlett because she robs the bank.
Yes. But then they keep like chasing them. They keep chasing them. And she's like, this is so weird. Like, why is everyone, you know, why are they this desperate to get their money back?
Exactly, because normally the militia, and she's robbed enough banks to know, normally the militia will follow you for a certain distance, but because the wilds are super dangerous, eventually they go, we're all going to die, or maybe they all die, I don't know, but they go back. They don't follow for very long.
Yeah. So then, you know, she has this great moment of like kind of confronting the people who are chasing them, going like, are you really that desperate to have your money back? And they're like, what are you talking about? What makes you think we're after you? And that's the big reveal of like, what the hell is Albert? Like, what's going on with him?
That's not even the big reveal.
Well, no, it's not, but it's like kind of the first of like it's one of the first moments that makes you go, oh, what? In the books. And there's a lot of it.
And it slowly dawns on you, right? Like when you reread it, you can see like Scarlett's actually really off-put when she comes across the bus that she finds him in, because it's blown outwards. So something came from inside. And she thinks that's weird. Which, it is weird. It is weird. Yeah.
But then Albert comes out and he's so completely defenseless and useless that this couldn't possibly be connected to him. Mm-hmm. Except that it is. So there's all these great clues.
And it just slowly dawns on both Scarlett and the reader that he's actually really dangerous.
Yeah.
He's super dangerous. And by the time Scarlett finds the wanted poster, it's like everything clicks in your head. You're like, oh, that makes so much sense. But at the same time, it's completely shocking.
Yeah. It's another, what moment. Like I said, there's a lot of them.
The writing really is super, super clever in that. And, you know, like we said, like a lot of the book is Albert's point of view already. And despite it being in Albert's point of view, it doesn't reveal the mystery. And it doesn't feel forced. It doesn't feel like, you know, Stroud's like consciously or deliberately avoiding these kind of thought patterns. It just feels very natural.
It's all very natural.
Supernatural. Yeah. It does kind of make me think of... I don't know how many people listening will have heard it, but there was an interview a while ago. I'm not sure how long a while is there.
ClusterCon.
Was it ClusterCon?
I think he definitely read some little snippet of the second, how he had originally planned to write the second Lockwood Co book from Lockwood's POV. So he read this tiny little snippet from his POV, which is very fun.
Yes! I love that as well, because Lockwood's POV in that is very energetic and kind of bouncy. And a lot of fic writers don't write him like that. So sometimes when I'm writing Lockwood fic, I go back to that and I try and think, okay,
it's a good idea.
You know, where was he actually at this point in the series? But the reason why Stroud didn't continue writing it from Lockwood's POV was apparently partly because it would reveal the mystery. All of the mystery about Lockwood's backstory, all of that, it would reveal him unless he deliberately made him think about other things. And it just wouldn't work. It would be too sad. He couldn't make it work, so he quit the idea. But he's obviously made it work here with Albert, which I love seeing writers grow. And it's like Jonathan Stroud. The first time that I read the Lockwood Co series, I was reading these, going, these books are a masterclass in storytelling. And I think myself, just by reading these and trying to write fic for these, and, you know, I think that I have become a much better writer because the pacing and, you know, the seeding, everything is completely on point.
Yeah. The more you look, the more you find.
But it is nice to see that even like a writer of that caliber can improve. There's always space to improve, and you get better, and you find yourself able to do things that you weren't previously able to do.
It's very encouraging.
It is! And if we had Meg here, I'm sure she would say, so I hope one day he decides to finally write us a kiss.
And then I will say, no, he shouldn't do that. I like that he doesn't write kisses. No, I have a big rant about this. And Lizzie and Meg aren't here to stop me, so I'm gonna say it. But like, no, like, my theory on this, right, is like, a kiss, like, in writing, it's a commodity. Like, you know, they're so overdone that... like a kiss isn't necessarily a moment that's, or it's not a moment that's necessarily specific to a couple. Like the surrounding circumstances and their reactions to it may be, but like there's only so many ways that you can write two people like putting their lips together, you know? So like when I'm reading, like 90% of the time my eyes are just like skating over like any description of a kiss. Like it's, I'll be honest, it bores me a bit. And particularly
See, that's really funny to hear, because I have consistently actually heard in fic writing circles, like, people are scared to write kisses. They're worried about getting it right. It's hard to write a kiss. You know,
oh, really?
Yeah, especially...
Well, they should let it stop them. Sorry, being horrible tonight. But like, I mean, the thing is, a lot of the time, like in not just in fic, in all sorts of writing, a kiss, like on TV and in movies as well, the kiss is the shorthand. These characters are intimate now. They've had their big moment, and this is what shows that they're now intimate with each other. But to me, that's just lazy writing. You have to find what good writing is finding the specific thing, the thing that really says something about these characters and that situation that they're in, and them only, that the thing that could only be them, do you know? And Stroud is really good at writing these moments of like hyper-specific intimacy that could only have that level of intensity, of meaning, and of force, like emotional force coming from these two characters. And I think those moments like stay in my memory far more effectively because of it. Like, I mean, I'm thinking of some Locklyle moments in The Empty Grave, but I'm going to save that. We have more Locklyle episodes coming up.
No, pick one, because I'm trying to think of one.
Okay, for me, the absolute standout is the moment in The Empty Grave when Lucy comes in and like sits on Lockwood's armchair and he's reading his parents' lecture, and she leans over and she flicks off his light and she kind of says, "Are you still up?" or something like that. But it's just, it says so much about their closeness and like kind of her care for him, and like just a kind of a sense of possessiveness, and it says so many things about them. I'm still thinking about it. I don't think I would still be thinking about a kiss, you know? And it's the same with the moment, if I had to pick a moment for Scarlett and Browne, which would be similar. There's a moment in the third book, which... Now, I've only read it the once, so the details are a little bit, like, the exact details are a little bit hazy. Like, I know what moment. They're on, they're standing up on a ruin or something. Like, they've climbed up to a high place to survey this compound that they're planning to break into to try and find Scarlett's brother.
And they are 99% sure that they're gonna die.
They're 99% sure they're gonna die. It's a real, well... this is it, kid, kind of moment.
Yeah.
And like they're up there, the wind's blowing, I think the sun is setting, it's a gorgeous moment, and he takes off her hat. So this is a thing that, you know, because Scarlett, or Albert, can read minds, which we'll get to as well.
Yeah.
Scarlett wears this hat with an iron band in it so that he can't get into her head. So this hat is like the barrier that she's erected between the two of him, between him and her mind. And there's always the sense with the two of them that he's perceiving her more than she wants to be perceived. And yet she wants it simultaneously. There's like a push-pull there of like, she likes it, she doesn't like it. There's things that she's hiding. But very often when you're hiding things, what you know deep down that what would actually make you feel better is for someone to look at them. Like, so
anyway. And it really upsets Albert as well, because Albert is genuinely not reading her mind for this kind of stuff that she wants to hide. He's not taking anything that she's not giving. Yeah. You know, and he avoids doing it. He will deliberately like look away and things like that. And he does bring up a couple of times that he's annoyed about the hat, but he generally just lets it be. Yeah.
But it's just such a gesture of like she's so touchy about having her space invaded. Like for him to take it off, it's kind of like stripping her naked almost. You know, there's nothing between them like mentally.
And he takes it off as well. He takes it off her.
Yeah.
Every other time she takes it off for a reason, he takes it off her.
Yeah, it's just there's so much in it. But the thing is, like, he takes it off her, but he doesn't look. He closes his eyes and he leans his forehead against hers. So to read her mind, because of the way his telepathy works, he would have to actually have his eyes open. He'd have to be looking over her head. But he doesn't look. So there's this gorgeous sense of like trust and honor and respect and intimacy in it. And I mean, maybe there are characters and situations in which you could do this with a kiss, but it's not Scarlett and Albert. Like, and this is the other thing between the two of them. I really I think there's like kind of a definite sense of like a special friendship and a special interest that's just kind of waiting for that moment to just tip over the edge. But they're both so hurt that I think they need a lot more time to heal before they can get there. So I wouldn't have liked a kiss between these characters. I also wouldn't have liked a kiss between Locklyle, for the record. So
see, I actually disagree there. Not in that I wouldn't have liked a kiss or anything like that. I actually think that in book 3, Scarlett and Browne have had many kisses.
Not more secret snogging. Stop it.
Albert and Scarlett have kissed plenty of times. No, not secret snogging. I think that they're like together, and it's just they're treated as a couple by everybody. They act like a couple. Scarlett just casually says, "I love you." You know, yes, she does. She says, "And I love you for it," or something like that. When he says, "Oh yeah, I tortured the guy to interrogate him about your brother." Yes, again, getting back to Albert.
I don't remember that, but actually, I was thinking about like how Anyway, sorry, we'll get to that. But yeah,
like they seem officially together. So like the big kiss, that is when people get together. That would have worked for Locklyle. Like you could have had a kiss in there for Locklyle, and it would have worked. Would it have added anything? I don't think so. It would not have added anything, but it would have worked. But the big kiss scene for Scarlett and Browne would not have worked because I think by this point they've basically been married for a good 2 years. You know, and they're past all of that. Do we like each other? What's going on? Will we? Won't we? All of that. I think that yes.
I'd have to reread. I've only read the books the once, so like I'm kind of halfway through my reread of book 1.
You've got to reread because when you get to book 3, it's like, oh, they are like officially together, and it's at the point that this is old news. It's like when you've been with someone so long that it's just
anyway. It's 25 past
Stop
11.
telling everybody the time. It's not 25 past 11 to the people listening.
Hey, you're allowed timelines. I'm allowed to tell everyone the time.
Anyway, let's get back to the topic at hand. We were talking about Albert actually being a dangerous dude, okay? Why is he a dangerous dude? Why is he wanted? We did kind of talk about it a bit. So, what's special about him, Máiréad?
He is terrible. No, he has these powers. He has a certain set of special skills. Ooh. I'm not going to do a Liam Neeson impression because it would be embarrassing. But like, so, and they're kind of gradually revealed to us again, like a little. Stroud's very good at like expanding things slowly, keeping the tension going. So Albert does have like these like powers, and he first admits that he can read minds. Like, so Scarlett figures that out because he's behaving oddly, and she kind of, I think she threatens to gut him, and then he's like, yeah, I can read minds.
She gets the wanted poster, and she sits down at the table over dinner and says, I'm really excited because you're going to explain all about this wanted poster, or I'm going to gut you with my knife, or something like that, when they're sitting like in a restaurant.
Oh yeah, and this is that restaurant. This is the moment when some server comes over and is like, shall I bring you the couple's eel and wine special?
Yeah, with like eels in a heart shape or something.
Oh,
and she's like, no, you're giving us sausage. Fish and chips, I think they got.
Yeah, but it is like, it's a very cool concept for mind reading, in that like he actually sees people's thoughts. He doesn't hear them. So he has to have a visual on people to like sieve them. That's what it's called in the books. Like, which kind of implies that his telepathy involves like a certain amount of interpretation. Like people's thoughts are confused and non-linear. They overlap. And getting coherence out of them is like panning for gold. You have to like filter things. So yeah, that's how his mind. That's the first of his skills that we learn about. The second one is that his body is like crazy resilient. Like, you know, he can go through things that should kill someone else. Like, for example, probably the bus crash should have killed him. But it's not. It is there, I think, in book 1, but it's not actually pointed out to us that you know, he can survive improbable things until book 2 or 3. I think in book 3, Mallory says it explicitly.
Yeah, in book 3, Mallory says it explicitly. In book 2, I think in book 2 he might say it explicitly as well. She definitely hears about it from Mallory, But she starts to wonder about it before then because there's some massive crash or something, and he should be.
Yeah, there's the thing in the mine, and like there are definitely moments when he should be pulverized and he's not. But yeah, like the biggest, scariest trait that Albert has is this telekinesis. So like he's really struggling to control it when we first meet him. Like it bursts out of him when he's scared. He calls it the fear, and it like literally it shreds people.
Yeah. And this is because that's what sort of the Stonewall, the torture house, taught him to do, didn't they? They taught him to associate it with pain, to associate it with fear, so that he didn't like it.
Yeah.
You know,
it's kind of, it makes him feel awful using his powers. Like it really drains him. But
I think that's part of just making sure that he's only going to use his powers for their benefit, maybe.
Yeah, quite possibly. But anyway, like he has this power of telekinesis. He can move things around with his mind. He can do an awful lot. He starts to learn to control it and to use it, and he becomes less scared of it. And by book 3, he's like full on like just casually torturing a guy with it, and then he's like, "Hey babe, tortured a guy for you," and she's like, "Oh, you're so sweet."
Not exactly, but
that's canon.
That's
what happened.
Yeah,
I'm reading from the book right now.
She's not.
They can't see me.
Anyway,
I could be reading from the book.
I know she's not because I know that scene very well. Okay. Anyway. Yeah, his telekinesis powers are absolutely like off the wall strong as well. So we see a lot of characters who've got telekinesis, but some of them can only manage like lightweight things, or they don't have a lot of power behind that. Albert has a ton of power behind that. Like, he's probably the strongest telekinetic person that we see in the books. He can like shift entire mountainsides. At one point he picks up an entire warehouse, doesn't he? With like,
drops it on my terrible son.
With barely, he barely breaks a sweat. But it doesn't really cost him anything to do that. In book 3, we see they set up a bank heist, and as they're leaving the bank heist, they're getting shot at by like 500 guns on all sides, and he is controlling the area around him and Scarlett as they move through the town so that none of these bullets hit them, while simultaneously just destroying the entire town. As they walk down the street, he's pulling
good stuff.
He's pulling the facades of buildings off. He's ripping up the road. He's doing all of this at the same time as they're leaving.
Yeah, I hope the movies that they're supposedly making of these books, I hope they have like a really good budget, because I want to see Albert wreck the place.
Yes, we want to see Albert wreck the place. I really hope these movies come out, because I think he's going to have such a big fan base when they come out, because like we were saying, he's so sweet and hesitant and all that, but also he just goes around killing everything. Well, not goes around killing everyone, but he can destroy a whole place. He messes it up. He rips people to shreds. He is just the epitome of poor little meow meow.
He's the original poor little meow meow.
I think you forgot what original means, but anyway, the internet will love him.
Yeah, no, I did.
The internet will love him.
He invented poor little meow meow.
Now, a big thing about poor little meow meow is that they are kind of like morally very cool with killing people. And
he's baby girl.
Yeah,
he is
so much. He's not morally cool with the idea of killing people when Scarlett's doing it. He's always like, don't kill him, don't kill him, don't kill him. But, he's done it plenty. And he's an excellent, like, before we get into his killing sprees, I want to talk about how he's actually an excellent liar. And I sort of think that's partly because when he's at Stonewall, he just doesn't have much connection with other people. But because he's always sitting there, he's just got all these opportunities to like watch and observe everybody. And I think that must kind of give you some kind, combine that with his mind reading. He's got an excellent insight into the human psyche, how people think, how people feel, how people are likely to think and feel. And he uses that to his advantage fully. He's quite manipulative.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if I describe it as manipulative, but then again, like I haven't reread enough to like fully flesh out my thoughts on that.
No, he pulls it out. You haven't reread enough. You knew we were doing this episode. You proposed the date. Yeah. She starts the episode saying, did
I'm like-
everybody do the required reading? Did she do the required reading? Did she help?
No, I did maybe 60% of the required reading.
Doubt. Anyway, no, he is quite manipulative, but because it's Albert, it just comes out in little bits here and there. And you always kind of second guess yourself, and you think, whoa, and then he's back to talking about, oh, how prettily the sunlight dances on the leaves. And you sort of forget about it. You gloss over it. It's a bit like Lucy saying, I screamed, I screamed, I screamed. You just kind of gloss over it.
It's not emphasized.
Right? But he does. The first thing we see him do that's fully manipulative, I think, is when he's talking Scarlett into taking him along on the bank heist. And he's leveraging his mind reading to manipulate her into it. And he does it very smoothly. He's talking like a huckster who's done it a million times before. And he probably hasn't.
Yeah.
He probably hasn't. But he pulls it off. He pulls it off really well. And another one that kind of jumped out at me is in book 2, there is like a one bed scenario where they check into a hotel, where Albert checks them into a hotel, and he checks them into a room with only one bed. And he's like, oh, it's the only one they had left. I don't think so. It feels very much like he did that on purpose.
Is this...
Maybe not because he was trying to get some. I think it's more just he wanted to spend more time with her. So I think it's a bit more innocent than people would think, but I very much think that he did it deliberately. That's the feeling that I get from it.
I'd have to reread. My lack of knowledge of book 2 is letting me down here.
He's just very unapologetic about it. Again, it's kind of glossed over that they're sharing the room, and she's like, you can sleep on the floor, and he's fine with that, but I don't think he does. I do think they end up sharing the bed. Because later on it's like, oh, she sits on their bed or something like that. That's... Yeah, it's the phrasing. They sit on the bed to go over the maps and everything. And for the record, I think this is before they officially get together. In my head, they get together between book 2 and 3. Thank you. Well, the end of book 2 is when Scarlett opens up to him and actually lets him into her past, which I think is...
This is true. Actually, that is one part of book 2 that I remember really clearly, is that hug they have outside the inn, which is...
And like on the reread, I think a lot of book 2 is like Albert kind of being like, hey, we like each other, hey, we like each other, hey, we like each other, what are we going to do about that? And Scarlett being like, yeah, but no. That's kind of the vibe that I get. And obviously that's like the B, C, D plot, because this is a Jonathan Stroud book. And it's just not that important. But it's fun to have that running in the background. But anyway, he's 100% unapologetic of the fact that he's booked them into one room, knowing that Scarlett would not be happy about that. But he doesn't care. He's fine with it. Which, if it was anybody else, would make him come across as a little bit of an arsehole. But despite that, he is super, super, super respectful of people's autonomy, I think. And maybe that's because he had none growing up. But like I said earlier, like, he doesn't read Scarlett's thoughts. There's a point in book 2 where, like, Mallory is like, what do you mean you don't know about her backstory? Like, I know all the law. Of course I know it all. I just looked at her. And he's like, no, I didn't. And he gets really mad about it, too, because he sees that as a violation, which it is. But, he's very respectful about it. And yet he's super manipulative in a way that, like, Scarlett isn't. Scarlett will outright lie, but she's not manipulative to the same degree that Albert is. And
I'm not sure if it's manipulation or obliviousness in some cases, but anyway, sorry. Continue.
I think it's all deliberate, because he's such a planner. He plans things. Like, how did he get out of Stonemore? Stonemore was, like I said, it's half psychiatric hospital, it's half prison, and everyone in it is a bit like Albert. Like, they can blow things up, they can make, they can move things with their mind, all of this stuff. So obviously they've got a ton of security, and he slowly, puts together the plan. He finds out about a floor. He decides he's not even going to think about the floor just to make sure it's protected. He palms the sleeping meds. He sets this up so far in advance so that he can get out. And that's just him kind of in a nutshell. He's very strategic. And at first that strategy isn't really worth a whole lot because he doesn't have much knowledge of the outside world. But, in book 3, there's a point where they're being chased by the Tainted, and it's too many. It's like a bazillion of them. They're not being chased, they're kind of being hunted, And he's the one that comes up with the plan in the field. And in book 3, he does come up with quite a few of the little plans, or, he's got a mind for strategy. Yeah. And like I was saying, the immoral aspect of it, like, Calloway in book 1, there's this quote where she's talking to Scarlett about it, and she's telling Scarlett that he's such a monster. And she's like, no, he's not. This is a thing in book 1. People constantly telling Scarlett that he's a complete monster. Which does seem overblown. But does seem to also have a little bit of truth in it, because she goes ahead, she says to him, here's the quote that Calloway says to Scarlett. We have high security at Stonewall. There's a series of courtyards linked by guard posts. Albert forced the window at dawn, walked across the yards one by one. At the first guard post, we found 4 dead men. At the second, 2. At the final gates, he met the warder Michael, his main carer. There was an altercation, at the end of which the gates were blown out and Michael torn to pieces. His pockets had been rifled, his money taken.
Yeah, that's pretty conclusive. I mean, the thing is, you do have to filter that through the fact that it's coming through Calloway, who's a psychopath.
I mean, Calloway's a psychopath, yeah.
She has an interest in presenting Albert in the worst possible light, so... Yeah. Absolutely,
but the facts as they stand. And also, I mean, Albert is obviously trying to escape. He's running for his life. But we have 7 people dead. Also, he robbed them. He robbed the corpses. Which was a very practical thing to do. And it was good thinking. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to afford the money for the bus that he then blows up. But from his narration, you would not think that he would be the kind of character capable of killing someone and robbing their corpse. You just don't think he would be. Like, it's never mentioned in his thoughts at all. He doesn't feel guilt about it. And you think, okay, well, they were, people who, they raised him. Michael was his main carer, but he was tortured all his life. I don't think carer means the same thing there as it does to you and me. But it just doesn't bother him in the slightest. Like, the slavers that he kills at Locklyle. I always said that Locklyle, and I looked it up the other day. It's Locklyle, and I'm annoyed about it.
I couldn't possibly tell you why.
No, it is Locklyle. It sounds awful. I don't know why they call it Locklyle. They should change the name. Locklyle is much prettier. Anyway.
Sounds like Locklyle.
The slavers that he kills at Locklyle, I'm going to be the change I want to see in the world. The slavers that he kills at Locklyle, he doesn't think about it. He, casually rips 3 people to pieces and goes, oh, well, they were bad people anyway, and just moves on. And that detachment is kind of terrifying to me.
Yeah, I don't know. It's, as you say, he doesn't seem to feel guilt, because there's, I don't know, there's a quality of innocence about him that, I mean, I don't want to say it's a lack of understanding, but his helplessness... certainly in book 1, he's not really in control of his powers very much. So there is a sense that he's kind of helpless as regards those forces.
He does have more control than he's letting on. This is where the not doing a reread has let you down. He has more control than he's letting on. Because when he blows up the port at Locklyle, he deliberately aims for the barrels and he gets them. He picks up the flowers and he says sometimes he can't move anything at all in the experiments, but normally he can pick something up and he knows how to use it. He's got some control.
But in those moments of extreme fear, he definitely blew up the petrol drum on purpose, but the slavers, there's
a lot less control.
He definitely didn't seem to be in control there. But yeah, I mean, I agree. There is a definite dissonance between how kind of hug the trees he is and how gentle he is with Scarlett and the sheer level of violence and destruction he can and will unleash. And he's pretty ruthless when he needs to be. And it's by book 3, it is a definite trait that he, like we said, that there's that scene where he finds a slaver who he knows has information about Thomas, and he's completely ruthless in his torture of him. He strings him up with a chain and throttles him, I think. So it's, I don't know. There is I haven't fully fleshed out my thoughts about it. I don't know if I would call him. I don't think he's manipulative of Scarlett. But, I mean, maybe towards the start.
Generally No, but in small petty ways he is. Which is fine, because I think we all kind of are with people. Like, who doesn't like look at their partner and say, "Hey, do you love me? Would you do the dishes?" You know, who doesn't do stuff like that? Everybody kind of is slightly manipulative when it suits us.
I think it's all a matter of context. Like, whether I wouldn't call that manipulation, because, you know, I know it's a bad example.
It's a bad example, but kind of like the manipulation that Albert does, what kind of strikes me is that he's so casual about it. It's like he knows that he can do it, and he knows he can get away with it, and he just kind of makes a decision. But he's got those limits, you know.
Yeah, he does have lines that he won't cross, which is the curious thing. Like, I think he doesn't want to kill unnecessarily, but like he is pretty liberal with his definition of what's necessary
and what's
like,
not. Like, the escape from Stonewall does strike me, because when he loses control, he calls it maxing out in the first book.
Mm-hmm.
When he maxes out, he doesn't have any control. It kind of happens after that. He's completely spent. He can't use his powers. He needs kind of to recover his physical energy. But his escape from Stonewall, like she said, there's a series of courtyards. He crossed the courtyard, killed 4 men, crossed another courtyard, killed another 2, crossed another courtyard, killed the last one.
And that's when he maxes out.
No, he still doesn't max out, because he robs him and then he walks across the forest.
Yeah, I suppose I kind of took I suppose no, he doesn't max out, but he definitely, the description and the quote there does make it sound like he lost control a bit, given how
with Michael,
kind of...
I think with his main carer, maybe because of the emotional aspect, I think he lost control. But with the 6 men that he kills before then,
no, that is pretty calculated. You're right.
And again, he just doesn't think about it at all. And it's in direct contrast to Scarlett, who he spends a lot of time saying, "You don't have to kill him, just knock him out, just tie him up. Did you kill him? Oh, good, you didn't kill him," you know, okay. In direct contrast to Scarlett, you know, Scarlett's constantly wrestling with her conscience. Constantly.
Yeah.
Every single death that she causes, she's working through in her meditations. And it's very funny to me that, like, she's presented as this hardcore gunslinging foul-mouthed cowgirl, you know. Cowgirl? What the hell is a cowgirl?
Mm-hmm.
She's this gunslinging foul-mouthed cowgirl. She's from the Wild West region, which I suppose was formerly known as Hampshire. But she meditates.
Yeah, it's another one of, like, these kind of funny contradictions that we have in all the characters, like Albert's innocence versus his, you know, willingness to commit murder. Well, again, debatable if it's murder, but his willingness to kill.
Debatable if it's murder, yeah.
Then...
Just some casual manslaughter.
Well, I mean, to murder is to kill someone unlawfully, so self-defense is lawful. It's Albert was falsely imprisoned, being tortured under threat of death.
Yeah,
I personally don't count that as unlawful.
No, yeah, I will agree. I will agree. Yeah.
That's a very context specific nuance. Anyway, yeah. Scarlett. What were you saying?
Well, Scarlett, even when she kills in self defense, she still has to kind of work through it, you know. And she is just so prickly at the beginning. In book 3, she is so soft. Again, this is something like we can't talk about their growth without talking about them together as a couple, because it's Albert that makes her soft, you know. He's smoothed out all those rough edges in a lot of ways for her. She's so soft and open for her. And rereading book 1 and 2, it just kind of makes your heart ache, because when we meet her, she is not soft in the slightest. She's...
no, she's got this great introduction. Hang on, I have the quote. So this is this the opening lines of the book?
These are the very first lines of the series, yeah.
Yeah. So that morning, with the dawn hanging wet and pale over the marshes, Scarlett McCain woke up beside 4 dead men. 4? She hadn't realised it had been so many. No wonder she felt stiff. She tipped her prayer mat from its tube and unrolled it on the ground. Sitting cross-legged upon it, she tried to meditate. No luck, not with 4 corpses staring at her and a knife wound throbbing in her arm. A girl couldn't concentrate in those conditions. What she needed was food and coffee. Hard same, Scarlett.
I just realised that if you didn't know what kind of book this was, you could be forgiven for thinking that Scarlett's actually a succubus or something like that.
Yes, anyway, moving on from that.
Also, if you've never meditated before, you might be forgiven for thinking Scarlett's some kind of warrior nun.
Well, yeah, I suppose it depends on the kind of meditation. I mean, I think it is like, it's a great, again, study in contrast, this opening scene, you know, going from the the dead men to the prayer mat to the knife wound and the food and the coffee. Like, it's just here, like, it's a brilliant character introduction, and the whole like run up to her meeting Albert like establishes so much of her character in like such a cool way.
The coolest bit of the introduction to her character that we get from that early introduction, and I am sort of hesitant to say it's an introduction to her character as a whole, because her rescuing Albert seems very out of character from what we see beforehand, but really it's not. But the bit that struck me the hardest the first time that I read it was not the 4 dead men. It was not, you know, robbing the bank. It was this scene where this wolf comes out of the forest because he smelt the blood in the air. He's got the 4 corpses. The men who tried to rob Scarlett, she kills them. And then she just, like, takes a nap next to them or something. It's nighttime. She goes to sleep. Yeah, she goes to sleep next to them.
I think it's more.
Yeah, she must pass out, because that's just the stupidest thing you do. Obviously, the blood is going to attract, you know, predators and carrion eaters, so you don't want to be anywhere near that. But whatever.
Actually, no. I think, doesn't she like light sulfur torches?
Those are to keep the mud
overnight?
rats
like
away. I think she lit those already before the men attacked her.
Oh, before okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry. So
anyway, she wakes up, makes some coffee. Gets up, decides she's going to leave, and as she's leaving, a wolf comes out of the forest. And this is post-apocalyptic Britain. Wolves are gigantic. You know,
I mean, wolves
yeah,
are pretty
they're
huge,
massive, aren't they? They're already as tall as a person, so these must be taller than that. This wolf comes loping out of the forest, and there's this moment where basically they're going to pass each other. And she stands and looks at it, and the wolf stands and looks at her, and they just kind of, I don't know, they size each other up, they look at each other. It's almost like they're paying respects to each other, because they look at each other, they recognise a predator, and they both go, not today.
Yeah.
And it is such a cool scene, because it's like,
it really establishes who she is. Like
she herself is a lone wolf. She herself is a predator.
And then she goes and saves a helpless little guy.
I mean, there's all those stories about wolves taking in tiny babies and things that are abandoned in the forest.
Yeah, that's true. Like many a Tumblr girl before her, she simply cannot resist a helpless little man.
Albert Mowgli, really, isn't he?
Yeah, that's true. She's Shere Khan? No,
she's the wolves. He was raised by wolves.
Right. Probably.
Anyways.
Ago. I remember the songs. We haven't done any singing yet. Bare necessities of Mother Nature's recipes, the simple bare necessities of life.
Problem is that Albert is also the most similar to Baloo. So Joe is very much Bagheera.
Yeah.
Joe's Bagheera. Somebody write the AU. Anyway. Yeah.
Lizzie, I call not it. We're assigning you in your absence.
Anyway, she leaves this confrontation with the wolf, walks into a bank in the nearby town, and robs it.
She's just such a complete contrast in that moment to like this kind of smug and complacent bank manager. She walks in and she completely disrupts all his ideas of how the world should be, and it's a great like moment of establishing her as like Scarlett McCain, outlaw, versus the world. Like, all of this builds her up, and it builds her up into like this impossibly skilled, impossibly tough criminal.
Impossibly confident.
So confident in her skills. Like, she's like, the guys in the bank is trying to intimidate her, and she's just having none of it. She's just casually threatens him, casually takes his money, heads off on her bike. The bike thing is so cute. It's kind of
Does she have a bike at that point?
She does have a bike. I think she then ditches it. And then she's getting chased. But yeah, she does. Because I really remember that image of her like flying off on her bike after robbing a place. It's such a kind of, I don't know, to me it has such a schoolgirl association. But isn't there Isn't there something in what is it? Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid about them riding a bike?
Never seen it.
There's okay, well I mean it's again like the whole kind of heists and Wild West and robbing banks and daring do and all that. It's very similar in vibe, so I wouldn't be surprised if the bike was a little homage to that.
See, I was just thinking that normally you'd be riding a horse, but this is England and only rich people ride horses. So she gets a bike.
Yeah, the bikes are just so funny. Maybe Stroud didn't want her to have to shoot the horse or something.
Or maybe the horses have to be man-eating horses, and that would just make everything a bit too complicated. Also, she need to find a second one.
Yeah. Anyway. So the way she's presented is, like we said, confident, markswoman. She's not super powered, but she has like incredible she does seem to heal up pretty quickly. I mean maybe it's just that they have good healing technology in the future. I don't know.
Maybe it's just plot needs. The plot requires that your hand be okay by now.
Yeah.
But yeah, she's almost Fae-like, I think, when she robs the bank at the beginning of the books.
Yeah, there's a definite trickster.
Yeah, it's just she seems kind of otherworldly in a way, you know, like.
I think Albert often thinks of her like that, as like his internal narrative kind of presents her as like, someone
above it all in a way.
Yeah, she's almost like an avenging angel. I think that his narration uses a lot of like bird and angelic imagery around her, much like Lucy's does about Lockwood. It's a thing. The amount of times she compares him to a bird, it's hilarious. Like his coat like flapping behind him like wings. I'm pretty sure Scarlett gets some similar imagery.
Oh yeah, because she's got the big coat as well, doesn't she?
Yeah, she has the big coat. She has the big coat and the boots and the hat and the revolver. We love a girl. We love that for her. 10 out of 10.
And yet, as soon as she kind of picks up Albert, it's like, yeah, I'm keeping this one. I just found a stray kitten on the corner and I'm keeping him.
You know that thing from Brooklyn Nine-Nine? It's like, you know, when what's her
Rosa
name? Rosa, when she adopts the dog and she's like, I've had him for one day, and if anything happened to him, I would kill everyone in this room and then myself. That is Scarlett with Albert. Well, actually, it's not. Like, she considers selling Albert into slavery, like, the first...
She does! Like, the first couple of days that we see her with Albert, it's almost like Albert kind of serves to highlight all of that cool stuff about her. Like, all of her hard edges. Because he's so soft and guileless at the beginning, and Scarlett is, like we said, she's hyper competent. She knows everything about the world they're traveling through. She knows where they're going. She knows how to get to where she wants to go. She knows what to be scared of, how to survive, how to, you know, she knows it all. She's this font of wisdom. She's this source of survival. She's confident. I keep saying confident. I'm sorry. It is getting very late at night.
It's because she's super confident.
It is, yeah, she's
5 to 12 for those who are wondering.
But, you know, this is all contrasted to Albert's softness, you know? And she considers selling Albert into slavery. They come across a guy who has a boat, and Albert wants to ask him if they can borrow the boat, and she just punches him, you know?
Yeah, well, I think it is implied that he was about to attack her.
I think he was very kind of suspicious. She doesn't really give him a second to suss out. No, she just punches him straight out, which I think good for her. Look, if it was Scarlett at Winkman's with Lockwood in the show instead of Lucy, she would have lit them up. No problem. She would have done it.
Natasha just really wants to set someone on fire, is what
I just think, you know, dead men don't come after you, and Scarlett has obviously learned this lesson. Dead men don't come back for revenge. She very much has. And I mean, I think it's, even though she changes her mind pretty quickly about selling Albert into slavery, it's partly because he's potentially useful. Like, when they rob that first bank together, she's like, you know, this could be something big. Like, and she's kind of like, she is most definitely thinking about how she could manipulate him, how she could use him to her own ends.
But I mean, I think that's the surface level of her thoughts, like as they're presented to the narrative. But like her actions don't always line up with that. Like, you know, she doesn't, even though she's like this kind of lone wolf, super ruthless, tough, badass girl, she doesn't hesitate to save Albert from the bear. And she goes back for Etty at the fort when it's being attacked by Tainted.
She doesn't just go back for Etty. She puts herself at considerable risk. At massive amounts of risk.
Yeah, which given her backstory,
terrifying. Yeah,
like,
and she doesn't like
kids.
She's not close to Etty. Albert's really close to Etty. Scarlett is not. She's been avoiding her up to this point.
So yeah, and she tries to get Joe and Etty off the hook when the Faith Houses finally catch up with them. So yeah, she's, again, there's a contrast in there. There's the surface is not what's underneath
she's
Scarlett.
wrapped up in barbed wire, but inside she's this girl who's just screaming out for connection.
Now she is also a little meow meow. They really are little meow meow for little meow meow.
No, Scarlett is a meow meow who's someone who is soft and innocent but actually murder cat. She's like the cool guy at school who's actually really soft when you get to know him. I can't remember what it's called. I want to say it's like tsundere or something like that, but she's not that shallow. No.
She's not tsundere.
Anyway, the question is,
how did she end up that way?
Máiréad just kind of alluded to it. Scarlett's backstory is messed up. Absolutely messed up. When she was 13 years old and she had a 6-year-old brother, I think? Or was he younger? He may have been 5.
Yeah, I think it's about that.
He's teeny tiny. He might have been younger than that, actually. He might have been about 4. I think
when she was like early, like kind of preteens, early adolescence, and her brother,
she was 13. She was 13.
Is my memory.
Anyway, they live in like a homestead, small farm in a valley, community of other homesteads in that area, not too far out from a market town. And she's out picking berries with her brother one day. She goes home, and home isn't there anymore. Her homestead's been attacked by the Tainted, who have eaten all her family, set everything on fire, and now they're hunting down survivors. So she has to take her brother into the woods, and she pins him underneath her body. She convinces this tiny child to be as quiet as possible while the Tainted walk around them. And they pass so close that she can smell them.
It's so chilling.
It is terrifying. In the dark, she's just lying on the floor and she's not moving because they're walking past them. And somehow they don't get found. And the next week or two, she's just slowly kind of collecting information, supplies, because they had nothing. They just had some berries that they've been picking. And she's stealing back into the homesteads while at the same time the Tainted are hunting down survivors, because they've gone after all the homesteads in the valley, which I feel the need to explain that homesteads are normally a couple of acres out from each other, so they're your neighbours, but you can't see them from your house. And the Tainted have basically taken out all of these homesteads one by one, and then so any survivors were driven into the hills, and they were hunting them down at leisure, basically. And they knew that Scarlett and her brother were there. They knew they were up there, but they just couldn't find them, and they were trying to find them. So for weeks, as a 13-year-old responsible for a tiny child, and tiny children are not the most sensible things to try and keep alive in the best of times, you know, they're hiding out from these cannibals. And eventually they come, eventually the weather turns, the Tainted seem to leave the area, and so they start trekking into town. And they make the walk to town. They don't see anybody on the walk because everybody's heard about the massacre in the valley. So they've locked down any houses that they go past, which there's not many houses outside of the towns, because if you're not living in a town, you're liable to get eaten. They're all locked down tight. But she's a good big sister. She's carrying her little brother. She's looking after him. At one point, I know they take some dried fish from a random house because they had it hanging outside to dry. And obviously, she couldn't go knocking on the door or anything. Nobody's going to answer. They're just going to shoot her. So she leaves a note, or she leaves some money or something in return, because she doesn't want to steal. This is who she starts out as. She doesn't want to steal.
Yeah.
And she takes her brother to this town. Now, both Scarlett and her brother have got bright red hair and bright blue eyes. She takes them to the town and she says, my mother used to come here to trade. Our family's been eaten by the tainted. Can we work? Can we earn our keep? And the town has had a new mentor. The mentor are sent from the faith houses. They're kind of like priests, except they're not priests. They're just, they're hucksters more than anything, really. They feel like snake oil salesmen.
Yeah, they kind. Do you know what they remind me of? Is like the kind of the traveling witch hunters. Like if you've ever read stories about them, like that's very much the vibe.
No, I haven't read stories, but that sounds.
Oh, there was one, the Merry by God or something. There was a book I read, like a kind of a YA book about witch hunting in, I don't know, post-Reformation England, which was very creepy and which really stayed with me. But like, yeah, that character of like the traveling witch hunter who is very much just kind of stirring up fear in people to support his own power is kind of an archetype, I think, in like English mythology, or well, not mythology because it really happened, but is an archetype in a way.
Okay, yeah, that works because this mentor is just awful. You know, they walk into town and the townspeople are like, oh, better not be here, better go to this town or that town or this town. It's funny because they also say go to Taunton because they'll take anyone at Taunton. And in book 3 they do go to Taunton. Taunton is a total slave market, so yeah, go to Taunton, you'll be a slave. Yeah,
never made that connection. Again, need that reread.
But they do say like go to other towns which are actual towns, because they've got this new mentor, and the new mentor comes out to the square and he sees people talking to his children. He's like, who are these children? And she's only 13 and the mentors are from the faith houses. They're supposed to help you, they're supposed to support you. She throws herself and her brother on his mercy and says, you know, we will work for our keep, please. We've done a lot of business with this town. We're part of your safe lands. We're your subjects. And he says no. He says, look at their hair. Their hair is so red and deviant. They deserve the wickedness that was bestowed upon their family. They will bring nothing but wickedness to the town. We throw them out. And the townspeople picked the children up and merrily threw them out the gates. And Scarlett, who's, you know, just been chucked out on her ass with her 3, 4, or whatever, however old he is, her little brother. And she realises that the bags are in the town, so she's going to go back in and get the bags.
Right.
So she says to her brother, wait there for me. Don't leave. Wait here, I'll be out soon. And he says, no, don't go. We'll just get more food from somewhere else. Don't go, we don't need it. And she's like, no, we need the supplies in the bags. I'm going to go get them. So she tries to sneak in and get the bag, and she gets caught. And when they catch her, they lock her in this cage that's just like suspended from in the air above the square or something. It's one of those public humiliation things. You know, they lock her in a punishment cage overnight, and when she gets out in the morning, she gets her bag. I think she does actually get her bag, but when she gets out in the morning, she goes to get her brother. He's not there. And what did they tell her? They tell her that her brother was taken and chained out to the post for the wild beast to eat.
Yeah.
And that's what they did with a 4 or 5-year-old boy. And this just absolutely destroys her. The guilt that she went in when he begged her to stay, that she told him she'd be right back, and then she wasn't. And this led to his death, and it completely destroys her, and she just, you know, slides into apathy, violence. She is a complete mess, as you would be.
Yeah. And understandableness.
Understandable. But it is... I mean, as far as backstories go, Lockwood's is looking kind of cheery now, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to top cannibalism and witch trials, basically.
Yeah.
No, it is one of the saddest backstories I've ever read. And like the thing is, even after she kind of cleans up, well, not exactly cleans up her act, but she pulls herself together a bit. You know, she I think that criminal gang, again, I can't remember.
The Brothers of the Hand take her in.
Yeah.
See, I don't know how she ends up in that town because it's quite far away from where she started. But she ends up in the town of Stowe, which is more or less run by the mafia. Like, they let the Faith House pretend that they're running it, but it's more or less run by the mafia, which is called the Brothers of the Hand. And she causes a problem because she wrecks some ceremonial hats, but because she's caused such a ruckus and the townspeople haven't managed to catch her and string her up, and she's basically fought off about 8 people, which, again, Scarlett's not supposed to be an actual deviant. She's not supposed to have powers. But this is her untrained. She manages to hold her own. She hasn't been murdered. She's survived thus far.
Yeah.
I think she's got some kind of deviation. I think
I think so as well. Like the thing on my like reread of book 1, like the thing with her hand healing so quickly did like kind of make me pause. It is funny.
And she's got this thing like she will just hold an image in her mind of where the people are. When Albert's using his powers, he also holds that image in his mind of where the things are to move them. Whereas Scarlett holds an image in her mind of where they are and where they're gonna be, and then she hits them without fail every time.
I suppose it's a bit inevitable that this would remind me of Firefly because, you know, they're both westerns. But like it is a little bit River. Oh, what's her name? River Tam, I want to say.
It is called River. Whatever her name is, River. Yeah, her name
River
is River.
And Firefly, you know, the kind of the uncanny shooting reminds me. But yeah, no, she's quite impressive. Like whether it's an actual like a superpower or just her, like she is. There is definitely something special about her. But I mean,
and she's impressive enough. She gets noticed by the Brothers of the Hand, doesn't she? And they take her in, they train her properly. And that's kind of how she turns her life around, sort of. But does she really?
How turned around can your life be when you're in the mafia?
I mean, by the time we meet her, she says she's a freelancer, which I find hilarious.
As a fellow freelancer.
Yeah, as a fellow freelancer. Like, how can you be a freelancer if you're not selling a service, you're just robbing
She's
banks?
selling her bank robbing services. But yeah, I mean... in book 2, like even after she links up with Albert and she has some relationships now, which is like, you know, kind of a stabilizing effect, she's still like she's still a bit wild and inclined to make self-destructive choices, like, you know, at this sometime I think it's towards the start of book 2, isn't it, when she's like they've pulled off a heist and she's like, great, time to go party it up. You know, and
she goes and gambles it all away.
Gets into debt.
And she borrows money to keep gambling from people in the bar. And she says, oh yeah, I've got the cash in my room. She doesn't have the cash in her room.
Like, I mean, you think Lockwood is reckless. Like, she is actively courting danger the whole time. Like, she's trying to draw it on herself. And I think, like, she's someone, like, as you said, she really is characterized by guilt. Like, whereas Albert is like the sweet little murder puppy who has never felt remorse in his life. I don't know about that. But anyway, like, she is just so racked by it and the need to atone for the failure, like this way she let her brother down. Like, when I was in this reread I'm doing of book 1, you know, she says something along the lines of like the weight of because she has this funny habit where she, you know, if she swears, she puts a penny into like this little box that she wears around her neck, and then she'll give that money to the poor. We see her just kind of give it to someone who needs it randomly at one point. And like she kind of needs that physical weight around her neck as an expression of her guilt. Like, it's a little biblical, you know, there's a line about anyone who misleads or betrays one of these little ones, they'll be thrown into the sea with a millstone around their necks. I don't think it's... Ooh. Yeah, I mean, there's some things about, like, those books that have me scratching my head, like, was that deliberate? Like, she got stabbed through the palm? Is that meant to be a little bit messianic? I don't know. I'm probably reading too much into it because I just interpret everything through that filter, but, like...
I mean, coupled with all of the angel references, but then again, you know, Western culture, it all comes from Christianity. It's been so heavily intertwined for so long, so what's deliberately religious and what's actually just an expression of our culture? Yeah. You can't tell the difference. I mean, religion is to some extent culture.
And like, Scarlett's whole relationship to religion is quite confused. Like, it's interesting that it does play such a big part in this story, but I feel like it never really goes anywhere. Like, it's just kind of there. It's not like saying one thing or another.
It's not any kind of true religion in the way that, like,
it's totally irrational. Like, all the characters use the names of gods to swear, but the only person we actually see praying is Scarlett, and she kind of prays to herself, like to her own conscience, which I would not call that prayer personally. But the thing about the cursing being the thing that she does penance for, like after she like kills and steals and deals with criminals and slavers, like that's completely irrational. But the thing is, like, it's and Albert does call that out. Actually, he kind of goes, "Oh, I'm glad you draw the line at swearing. Like, I've seen you kill people and stuff, but swearing is where we're drawing the line in the sand." Okay, great. I'm glad there's something you would do. But it's I think it's what it is for her is that it gives her a sense of control. Like there is some sense of like order in her life, and it, like I said, it is pretty irrational, but it's also quite similar to the way a lot of people practice religion these days. Like they'll go through the rituals even though they don't understand the meaning behind them, and that ritual can give a certain measure of comfort and a sense of control, but it is ultimately kind of hollow and senseless. And I think like this is why in my more pretentious moments I refer to Scarlett and Browne as Stroud's postmodern series. There's like this huge sense of hollowness at the center of the books, and it's at the center of Scarlett too. I think she's kind of, again, okay, now we're wrapping up, so now I get to be really pretentious. To me, she's kind of like an emblem of like this broken world that they're in that doesn't seem to have a future. Like she doesn't think she deserves a future. And it doesn't seem to have like a past. Like there's nothing about its past that's salvageable. But that's kind of, it's the world they're in, but it's also Scarlett herself. But the books do end with her finding a kind of peace, like reconciling herself to her past and also opening herself up to a future. And it actually, I love that it comes from her making this kind of desperate public act of confession. Like she abandoned Thomas to like the mercies of the crowd, and then like in front of the crowd she like shouts out this apology. It's me, it's Scarlett, it's your sister, I left you behind, I'm so sorry. Like, oh my gosh, that moment is just so heart shredding. It's incredible. But she's trying to apologize to him, and like that kind of absolves her. Like it's this final getting the secret out. She tells it to the world. And the book does end with this kind of like hopeful look towards the siblings' relationship being mended. I like that it doesn't finish with, them being like perfectly reunited and so happy, because again, I think Stroud, another thing that like, and this is I think a reason maybe that he doesn't show kisses as well, is that the moment of consummation is never as satisfying as the anticipation of it. Like, it's really hard to build up an entire book to like a moment of consummation and then pull it off. Whereas, because real life isn't like that. No matter what happy ending you write, it's ultimately going to be unsatisfying, because we don't really have endings like that in life. So the book ends with kind of like just another beginning. Like, so the siblings they're not perfectly together yet. They're getting used to each other, they're getting to know each other again, but there's a definite sense of like a tentative hope for Scarlett for the future now, and like a kind of a tentative hope that the world can be in some way restored. Although, like, yeah, its relationship to the past is a bit more dubious. That's a whole nother episode though, and it's 17 minutes past 12 and I have to be up in 6 hours, so
let's wrap it up there, because I think you've put it very beautifully. I did want to say something about how we've kind of ignored Albert with the conclusion to this series. Albert is also extremely important to the series. But no, I think the ending, the final ending, is Scarlett's. The ending of each book is Scarlett's. The ending of the first book, she acknowledges the fact that she needs other people, that she wants other people, after spending the whole book telling herself that she doesn't, that she's that lone wolf that we met at the beginning. The ending of the second book, she opens up, she lets Albert in, she tells him about Thomas. We've never named him this whole episode. Her little brother's name is Thomas. Yeah. And the ending of the third book, she opens up to everybody and she finds him. And I mean, she wouldn't be able to do that if it wasn't for Albert. If Albert wasn't there, it wouldn't have happened. But that is, again, a completely different episode. So, thank you very much for listening.
I want it noted that Natasha promised we would be finished by 11:30. That was nearly an hour ago.
It's about 45 minutes ago, so I hope this episode hasn't turned into another hour-long extravaganza.
Editor Nikki here to let you all know we are currently at 1 hour and 30 minutes. Goodness gracious, Natasha.
We are trying to keep them
I'm
short
not
and
sure that we
snappy,
are.
but they just keep getting longer
I think
and
we're lying
longer.
to
I don't know
ourselves.
how. I think that we think we're so good at this that we just ramble, and that makes us less good at this, so we need to stop it, and I'm rambling right
Anyway.
now. So let's get back to it. Thank you, everybody, for listening. I hope that you've enjoyed this episode as much as we have actually enjoyed doing it, despite the repeated complaints about the time. I love Scarlett and Browne. I'm sure you can hear from the way Máiréad is just saying, I'm too tired to be articulate, and then just waxing lyrical about Scarlett in
amazing.
particular.
Love her.
That she loves Scarlett, she loves Albert. These are fantastic books. If you haven't read them,
If
please
you haven't
read
read them and you've listened all the way
And-
through this, you're so super confused right now, and I
I mean, I respect your dedication and I love you
Yes.
for it, if that's the case.
But yes, do read them, and yeah, until next time, that's it from us at Haunting the Narrative. Thanks for listening.